Until the Silver Age of horror, women were only ever seen as the damsel in distress or the reward for a hero's efforts. As society evolved, women's roles within the field became much more equal and in some cases were the forefront of many a horror project. Whether it be on screen or behind the scenes, female contributions to horror have proved nothing but an asset to the art and enabled there to be many outstanding individuals. From the humble makeup artist to the heroic final girl, there's no denying that horror has become a truly gender-equal art form. So join me as I count down the top 10 women in horror. For this list, I'll be considering any female associated to the world of horror, including but not limited to the classic Scream Queen. Joining me this week, may I introduce from the Horror Addicts, Gory B Movie.
Merry meet witches, I'm Gory B Movie, co-host of Horror Addicts and of my brand new spin-off channel. Plus I host a monthly Women of Horror live stream called Ghouls Night Out. I also watch horror, review it, and I'm a woman, so I feel fully qualified to chime in on this list. Horror has shown me more than any other genre that there's nothing that women can't do. Whether it be writing chilling stories like Mary Shelley, battling xenomorphs like Ripley, bringing horror to the big screen like the Soska sisters, or celebrating the macabre like the mistress of the dark herself, Elvira. Picking the top 10 women of horror is quite an undertaking, and I can't wait to see what Mike has in store for us, so let's get started.
Number 10. Beginning her career as a child actor, Danielle Harris has since become a staple name in the world of horror. Entering the scene in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, her role as Jamie Lloyd would become one of the series' most notable characters. Over the next 30 years, Harris became an in-demand actress and would appear in over 30 horror productions, and despite a brief hiatus in the late 1990s, her return would eventually earn her to being enlisted into the Fangoria Hall of Fame in 2012. Also earning acclaim for her vocal work and TV roles, Danielle Harris is one of the youngest and longest-serving actresses in horror, who many refer to as the reigning Scream Queen.
Everyone wants to see characters they relate to in horror movies, and as a kid in the 80s, my final girl was 7-year-old Jamie Lloyd. She taught me that I wasn't the only kid with a messed up family. I mean, when she said she had a creepy uncle, she wasn't kidding. Seeing her face Michael Myers taught me that I didn't need ninja moves or weapons to face my fears. But it doesn't hurt to keep a sharp pair of scissors handy either.
Number 9. First making her appearance in the classic musical Annie, it seemed unlikely that Shawnee Smith would become the alternate celebrity she is today. Best known for her role as Amanda Young in the dark thriller series Saw, her horror career also began in the 1980s, appearing in the FX-laden remake of The Blob. Over the following 30 years and building an impressive resume across many theatrical platforms, Smith became one of the most prominent horror faces of the last several generations. Also making an appearance in the praised remake of Carnival of Souls and an ever-present face at horror conventions, Shawnee Smith is an undeniable modern great.
Nobody does crazy better than Shawnee Smith. I loved her in the Stan TV miniseries, and Amanda Young was one of the most memorable characters in the Saw franchise. The energy and dedication that she brings to every role is incredible. Hell, she was sick with the flu during the filming of Saw, and in Saw 2, she was 4 months pregnant. There is nothing that can stop the force that is Shawnee Smith.
Number 8. Starting her acting career in 1989 as a commercial actress, Canadian-born Katharine Isabelle wouldn't find major fame until 2004's Ginger Snaps. Making an immediate impact on the horror scene, Isabelle would achieve mass exposure with her appearance in the highly anticipated Freddy vs. Jason. Although only appearing in a few respectable roles, she would become the most sought-out horror actress of the 2000s, appearing in a further 20 horror productions. Her most prominent role would come in the Soska sisters' 2012 body horror thriller, American Mary, and fully established Isabelle as a poster girl and also a leading lady of horror.
Anyone that thinks that all Canadians are polite has never seen Katharine Isabelle in Ginger Snaps. She proved that teenage girls are every bit as brutal as teenage boys, and if mean girls wear pink on Wednesday, then Ginger wears blood. She was angry, morbid, mean, and she made no apologies for it. Katharine Isabelle brought the same intensity to her role in American Mary, and though both of these characters are killers, Katharine lends such honesty, vulnerability, and humor to her roles that we can't help but love them.
Number 7. Also known as Booth in her homeland of England, Emily Booth is the unofficial face of the British horror scene. Beginning her career as a late-night TV presenter, she soon turned to the Sci-Fi Channel, becoming the second host of the cult series Out There. Appearing in several obscure pictures including Doghouse, Evil Aliens, and Cradle of Fear alongside Cradle of Filth frontman Danny Filth. Booth would eventually be hired as presenter of UK TV's The Horror Channel. Also embarking on a side career as an alternate fashion model, her name and likeness would become synonymous with all things twisted and has been the first lady of the British horror scene for almost 20 years.
Emily Booth is one that I'm unfortunately not that familiar with, but after doing a bit of research, I'm impressed. She's like British Elvira. If, like me, you're late to the game on this one, she does have a YouTube channel that has a lot of her intros from the horror booth. Also, her newest movie, Shed of the Dead, came out last month and stars Kane Hodder, Bill Moseley, and Michael Berryman, so I'll be checking out that one for sure.
Number 6. Starting a professional acting career in commercials, performer LINNEA Quigley would become one of the most highest-profile scream queens of the 1980s. Initially cast into sexploitation roles, her comfort with on-screen nudity would later see her typecast as horror victims, her biggest break being in the 85 zombie classic Return of the Living Dead. Since her first appearance in 1979's The Tourist Trap, Quigley has appeared in over 120 alternate pictures, making her one of the most prolific horror actors of all time. Working extensively as an animal rights activist and earning credits as a producer, singer, and author of 4 books. To this day, LINNEA Quigley is one of the all-time greats.
Okay, unpopular opinion, my favorite LINNEA Quigley movie has gotta be Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. I love her character Spider, and I think it's her most versatile role. In addition to being a sexy badass, Quigley showed that she also has a talent for comedy, and she drops some great one-liners. LINNEA Quigley is also the star of my favorite fitness tape, Horror Workout. In addition to getting to see LINNEA Quigley do aerobics in a studded bra, you also get to watch zombies during your water break. What's not to love?
Number 5. Although best remembered for her work in E.T., Dee Wallace is an undeniable horror icon. Earning attention of filmmakers for her ability to perform a scream of pure terror, atop of being a proficient actress, would see her become a leading lady of 1980s horror. Starring in several highly respected B-movies, over the next 20 years, Wallace would become one of the most respected supporting actresses in Hollywood. Despite a tragic personal life, Wallace has since emerged as a spiritual counselor, a writer of several self-help books, and creating specialist toys for children with low self-esteem. With a career spanning over 40 years, Dee Wallace is undeniable horror royalty.
Dee Wallace is America's mom. She's one of my heroes, and she is an incredibly talented actress who brings such depth and honesty to every single performance. My favorite being Cujo. There's a part of this movie where she's stuck in the hot car, the rabid dog is outside, and her son is screaming that he wants his daddy, and she shouts at him and says, "All right, I'll get your daddy." It's a brutal and honest moment that any parent can identify with. However, the director wanted to cut the line because he worried that it made her character seem less sympathetic. But Dee Wallace said, "Let's have the balls to go with it." And they did, proving that Dee Wallace is a force to be reckoned with both in front of the camera and behind.
Number 4. Possibly representing the greatest example of strong female character actors, Sigourney Weaver became one of the most praised actors in any given field. Best known to horror fans as Ellen Ripley from the sci-fi horror franchise Alien. Following her appearance in the equally praised Ghostbusters, Weaver became one of the most recognized names of 80s horror. Remaining highly active and occasionally serving as a spokesperson for many a small project, her contributions to horror are truly selfless. Never straying too far from alternate cinema, and proving herself one of the most versatile actors in the industry, Sigourney Weaver is possibly the highest profile actor of them all.
Sigourney Weaver is an undeniable badass. For women, Ripley is like our John McClane. And as a mother, I can relate. I too had a parasite that grew large in size and eventually burst its way out of my body. I called mine a baby, she called hers a chest burster, but it's the same thing. Throughout her career, Sigourney Weaver has continued to challenge outdated perceptions of women by playing characters that are strong, intelligent, and resilient. She's like the Rosie the Riveter of our generation, reminding all women that we can do it.
Number 3. Considered by many to be the first of the modern scream queens, Jamie Lee Curtis first made her name in the slasher classic Halloween. Despite having an adverse fear to horror, she would use this within a performance to become one of the most genuine horror protagonists. Contributing to many alternate pictures over the following 40 years, she would ultimately earn her name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1998. Currently working alongside children with PTSD at the Washington Shakespeare Theatre, Curtis would return to the Halloween franchise in 2018. Also headlining the TV series Scream Queens, Jamie Lee Curtis is a legend in the horror genre.
Jamie Lee Curtis is a trailblazer of horror. She was one of our very first final girls as Laurie Strode in Halloween, playing the character as a teenager, then a mother, and in 2018, a grandmother. The film broke box office records for horror, but also for a film starring a woman over 50. For generations, we've had aging male action stars tracking down their kidnapped children, and now thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis and others on this list, we have women showing us that grandmas can kick ass too.
Number 2. First gaining attention as a Las Vegas showgirl, Cassandra Peterson would become a brand of her own as her alter ego, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Making her name as the hostess of her own horror movie show, Elvira's goofy brand of comedy and highly sexual presentation became an immediate hit with horror fans. Taking aesthetic inspiration from the dark pin-up girls of the 1950s and 60s, her hostess shows were staple viewing for lovers of schlock horror for almost 2 decades. With a career spanning 40 years and multiple TV series plus 2 feature films, head of Queen Bee Productions, Cassandra Peterson is arguably the most iconic lady of horror.
Women are often put in boxes, the funny girl, the sexy girl, the smart girl, but Cassandra Peterson shattered all of those boxes with Elvira. She's dead sexy and she has a sharp wit, and she never takes herself too seriously. She also knows her horror films. On top of all of that, Cassandra Peterson knows how to put on one hell of a live show. She may be over 60, but anyone who's seen her famous tassel twirling dance knows she's still got it.
If you enjoyed Demented Top Tens, show your appreciation by hitting the thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe to keep up with the channel. Also, have you seen future Top Tens and follow Demented Pictures on Facebook, or consider supporting the show on Patreon, links in the description box below. Number 1. In the history of horror, there have been few to contribute more to the field than Lynn Shay. Sister of Bob Shay, the executive of New Line Cinema, first earning recognition in the 1984 classic A Nightmare on Elm Street, Shay would regularly appear in New Line's releases, becoming one of the most prolific supporting actresses to date. Upon earning mass popularity in the Farrelly Brothers' Dumb and Dumber, she would win multiple awards for Best Supporting Roles, which would only increase Shay's credibility. Fully embracing the horror stigma, from small independent features to Hollywood pictures, Shay's devotion to horror has been unparalleled. Becoming a regular face at Universal Studios' Halloween Horror Nights, she would be awarded the title of Godmother of Horror in 2015. With almost 200 acting credits to her name, the vast majority being within the horror genre, Lin Shaye truly is the First Lady of Horror.
Spotting Lin Shaye in a horror movie is a lot like playing Where's Waldo. She pops up in the most unexpected places. For the longest time, she seemed reduced to cameos and bit parts, but I think Insidious brought her to the forefront of horror, and since then, she's had countless starring roles. There used to be a stigma in Hollywood that there was no work for actresses over 40, but I think that's changing now in large part due to Lin Shaye, who's proven that success can happen at any age.
So there was my list. Were there any I missed? Which ladies of horror do you love the most? Leave a comment below, and a huge thank you to Gory for appearing on this episode.
Well done, Mike, on picking some incredible women. One I'd like to add that tops my list is Barbara Crampton, star of Reanimator, Chopping Mall, and From Beyond. These days, we're seeing her in her best roles yet in movies like We Are Still Here and You're Next. She's also an avid supporter of the genre and advocate for women of horror. Another I'd like to mention is Alice Lowe. She is the writer and star of Sightseers, and she was the writer, director, and star of Prevenge that she made all while being pregnant. I am so amazed by everything women in horror have accomplished, and I look forward to seeing more women of all ages and colors in front of and behind the blood-splattered lens in the years to come. Thank you, Mike, for having me. This was a true honor, and if you want to chat more horror with me, you can find me over at youtube.com/GoryBMovie. And until we meet again, blessed be.
Be sure to check out some of these other top 10s on screen now, and remember, no list is definitive but the one you make yourself. This is Mike from Demented Pictures saying, may your movies be bloody and your scares be shitless.